Hey guys, welcome back. And today we are going over my top 10 safeties in the 2024 NFL Draft. If you guys have been watching my videos for the last few days, you'll know it has been a super weekend here. So we've talked over 6 safeties in this draft class, ranging from Bo Braid to Malik Mustafa, bunch of them. We have done videos on all 10 of these guys that you will see. So be sure to go check out my playlist. That'll be linked below. And you can see a full in-depth analysis on each and every one of these players. This is a top 10 list. There are going to be guys that are going to be honorable mentions. So I'll talk about a couple of them really quick. Jalen Simpson is an honorable mention. Jaden Hicks is an honorable mention. Those are the two big ones. Kenny Logan as well is right there. But this is my top 10 list. Obviously, my list isn't the right list. This is the list that I have come up with after film study, evaluations, and kind of just watching these guys play over the courses of their collegiate careers. So let's go ahead and get right into it with my number 10 safety. And that is Keon Ealypo out of Oregon State. This is a guy who I don't think is getting discussed enough in this draft class. He's got elite size. I believe he's around 6'2", 219 pounds. He looks like a smaller linebacker out there. He's very, very good, and we see it especially in run defense. He plays like a linebacker, very good in the box, very good run defender, but he has a very good ability in man-to-man. He has fluid hips. I know that it's going to say not fluid down below in the cons. That is more his back pedal and his transition from that. That is a bit choppy at times. You'd like to see that improve for him. But in man-to-man coverage, he's physical, he's got fluid hips, and he's got really solid speed. I know he ran a 4.57. It's not necessarily the greatest time in the world, but it's not a time that I'm concerned about, especially for a guy who is 6'2" at his position. In zone coverage is where I have my biggest issues with Ealypo, and is why he's down here at 10. Has the tendency to stare at the quarterback, get lost, and allowed some big plays over the top. And then obviously he just doesn't have the smoothest change of direction when leaving his back pedal. But Ealypo is a guy that I'm a really big fan of. I think he'll probably be a 5th-round pick. He's not getting the respect that I think he should be getting. I think he's a really good player. Reminds me a lot of Adrian Amos, a former Packers safety. Had a really nice career. Size-wise, play style, RAS score, it's identical between him and Amos. I think that's my comparison. I think Ealypo is going to be a pretty solid NFL player. At number 9, it is Malik Mustafa out of Wake Forest. This guy is an absolute freak athlete. It's unfortunate we didn't get to see him at the combine because he very well could have ran in the 4.3s. He is that good. He is a bit smaller. He's about 5'11", 209 pounds, somewhere around there. What's really impressive is he has added on about 25 pounds since he came in to Wake Forest. And for a guy who is considered to be smaller, he thrived in the box. He was an unbelievable run defender, seemed to be in every single pile. We talked about in my Peyton Wilson video, I talked about that. He's just in every pile. He is the safety version of Peyton Wilson, I feel like. Just a super athlete, really good run defender, but he's also really physical in coverage. Gets his hands on the offensive players. He's got a really good initial punch. One of the more physical safeties in this draft class. And his physicality and aggression can come back to bite him because he does bite on double moves, and it leads to him getting beat over the top. Now, he has the speed to get back into the play. He probably would have run in the 4.3s, but you just don't want to see that become a trend for him, as biting on double moves. Also, his tackling is good, and he's a sure tackler, but I think he takes some poor angles sometimes in run defense, and it leads to some broken tackles. He reminds me a lot of Jalen Petrie in Houston. Very similar play styles, very similar size, good box players. They allowed some plays over the top at college. Different reasons for Petrie. It was more a lack of speed to get back into the play. Mustafa is just a bite on double moves kind of guy, but I think Mustafa is going to be a really solid safety as well. I could see him getting picked at the back end of the 3rd round, early 4th round. At number 8, it is Taylor Demerson out of Texas Tech. This guy is awesome. Coming in between Mustafa, Ealypo, Hicks, and Demerson. Those were the guys fighting for these last 3 spots. And I was just watching some of his tape, doing some reading on him, And I think he could even be higher than this on my list, to be completely honest. I absolutely love this guy. He flies all over that defensive backfield. It's really hard to complete passes when he is roaming the field. He's got excellent ball skills. I believe he had 7 pass deflections in 2023, mixed out with, I believe, 3 or 4 interceptions. You've got a player there. He's got versatility as well. He could play in the nickel. He could play that roaming free safety role. He could play in the box as well. He is a very, very good safety who's got a lot of versatility, really athletic. Ran a 4.41 40-yard dash. We absolutely love to see that from him. But he does have some questions at times. His play strength can be questionable. It shows up when he's making tackles. He's a bit undersized. He's 5'10", 197 pounds, a little bit small for the position. It's not something I'm worried about, though, because he plays bigger. And what he lacks in size, he makes up for in his athleticism. Similarly to Oladapo, however, he does get caught staring in zone coverage at times, and it leads to him allowing some bigger plays. He's got great ball skills. He's got really, really good athleticism. He reminds me of Tyrann Mathieu. I know that's a lofty comp. Shout out to Brett Coleman for this one, but I mean, come on. It's a guy who is a little bit undersized, but is very athletic, very smart, has got really good ball skills and great versatility. He is the next Honey Badger, I think. And if he falls into the right system, watch out, because he could be a serious threat at the next level. At number 7, we got Javon Bullard. Now, I know I'm not as high on Javon Bullard as a lot of people. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's a great player. Demerson is a guy who I think has a higher ceiling. I think Mustafa also has a higher ceiling, but I think Javon Bullard is a more impactful player. He's going to come in right away and be an impact starter. He comes with championship experience, won 2 national titles at Georgia, probably could have won a 3rd. They ended up losing to Alabama. This is a guy who's got really good burst, really good speed as well. I know there's been questions about his closing speed. He had a 1.51 10-yard split. Not something I'm worried about with Bullard. He offers a lot of versatility to the defensive side as well. Similarly to Demerson, similar to Mustafa, this is a guy that I think does a really good job, though, and thrives in that nickel role, which is where I think he is going to ultimately be playing at the next level. He's got burst, but he's an extremely hard hitter. It says he's an inconsistent tackler. I think there's a difference between being a hitter and a tackler. His tackling, he just seems to use his arms, doesn't like to get his body into it too much, and it just leads to missed tackles. Hitting-wise, though, he's one of the hardest hitters in this entire draft class. Him and Cam Kinchen, who you'll see coming up in just a little bit, they're both extremely hard hitters, and that's something that I really like about him. He laid the hit on Marvin Harrison Jr. that took him out of the college football playoff. Again, smaller frame, not something I'm worried about, but this is a guy who can roam around the defense, can play that high safety role, can play in the nickel. You love that about him. He was impossible to come up with a comparison for. I went with Mike Edwards simply because I just really think they've got similar skill sets. They could play high safety. They could play in that slot nickel corner role. Very similar size, very similar measurements. I went with Mike Edwards. I think Bullard's ceiling is a lot higher than Mike Edwards, but Edwards has been a starter on 2 Super Bowl teams at this point, so who knows? At number 6, we got Cole Bishop out of Utah. Now, I know a lot of people are going to get caught up in the combine numbers because he tested incredibly, which I will say is there. But as you see in the cons, his play speed is not his combine speed. He is not a 4.44 40 guy. That's not who Cole Bishop is. Now, he's fast. I don't think he's that fast, especially on the field, and we'll get into that in a second. But Bishop has some great size at the position. He's 6'1", 208. You love to see that from him. He's versatile, too. He can play in the slot, can play in the box, can play high safety, free safety. There's really a lot that he can do that you really love. He's also a pretty hard hitter, similarly to Javon Bullard. You love that from him. But where I have issues with him are his play speed. I just did not think he was very fast at times. Now, he wasn't slow, but he wasn't fast. And that was something that I didn't love to see. And he felt very stiff, was not very flexible, did not have very fluid movements. That's something I wasn't in love with. And then inconsistencies as a tackler, which is a trend with a lot of these guys. Again, when he's tackling, he can land some very good hits and is one of the hardest hitters in this class as well. It's just not consistent enough to my liking. I still think he's a fine player. Reminds me a lot of Harrison Smith. And no, it's not just because they're white. They've got a very similar play style. Good, probably strong safety at the next level. I like Cole Bishop. He's my number 6 safety. At number 5, it's one of my guys in this class. It's Beau Brade. Beau Brade is awesome. He might be the smartest safety in this entire draft class. He has elite football IQ, the way that he reads the football field, the way that he sees plays happen before they happen. He seems to always be in the right place at the right time. And I know the numbers aren't going to back it up, but he has really solid ball skills as well. He seems to always be making a play on the football. Whether he finishes with an interception or not is not really the point. He seems to always be there and just make the catch a little bit more difficult for the receiver. And again, very versatile. Could play in the box, which I thought was very solid from him, but he really could line up everywhere. His tackling was not something that I think is very great from him, and his long speed is his biggest concern. He allowed some big plays over the top because he just didn't have the speed to get back into the play. Reminds me a lot of Javon Holland from the Miami Dolphins. Very similar size. Again, very similar skill sets as well. Very smart players, good ball skills, versatile. I think Beau Brade is one of the most slept-on players in this entire draft class. I don't get why he's not getting the appreciation he deserves, but he's my number 5 safety in the class. At number 4, we've got Keon Bullock out of USC. He's an interesting one. He's got good size, incredible length. He's 6'3", I believe. He's got sideline to sideline speed, one of the faster guys in this class, at least on tape. And he thrives in man and zone coverage. I think he reads the field really well. He can line up with running backs, can line up with tight ends, and he does a really good job there. There's a lot to like with him athletically. He's got a lot of the intangibles, but a bit slim for the position. He's a very bad tackler and a very bad run defender. He could be a little bit lower on this list. I could see if you had him below Bishop, I could see that for sure. I definitely think he is ahead of Javon Bullard simply just due to his athleticism and his size. But he reminds me of C.J. Gardner-Johnson, decent ball skills, maybe not the biggest guy in the world. They're both poor tacklers, not amazing run defenders. Bullock is a good safety. He'll probably be one of the top guys taken. I like him. He's my number 4 guy. By the end of this, I could definitely see Brade, Bishop, maybe Bullard being ahead, but I still like Keon Bullock. I think he's going to be picked in the first 3 rounds. Entering the top 3, and look, I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with this because his combine was, I'll just say it was one of the worst combine performances of all time. But I still believe in Cameron Kinchens. His testing numbers were terrible. Some of the worst explosive testing numbers I've ever seen. But he's got a lot of tools that you absolutely love. He's got elite ball skills for a safety. He's an incredibly hard hitter, and he plays way faster than his numbers are going to lead you to believe. Now, his zone awareness can be a little bit iffy at times. I don't think he's a bad zone defender, but I definitely think he is a lot better in man-to-man coverage. He's such a fluid athlete, so physical, makes life very difficult for receivers, but he plays so aggressively at times, especially as a tackler. You see it. He is trying to absolutely take the receiver's head off. And if it doesn't work, if he overextends, then that leads to broken plays. And it happened quite a bit. He's really good at blowing up screens. It reminds me of Devon Witherspoon in that way from last year. Just excellent at blowing up screens. But the testing numbers are really going to deter people. I'm not too worried about it. I don't put too much faith into the combine. Based on the tape, I think Cameron Kinchens was absolutely incredible. Now, the Senior Bowl, that's another story. But really, these top 6 safeties between 6 and 3, between Bishop, Brade, Bullock, and Kinchens, it's very close between all of them. I think they're all like 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. Put them in any order, I would get behind it. But I still believe in Kinchens. He reminds me of a Minkah Fitzpatrick type player. I still think he could be a really good starter. At number 2, we have Tyler Nuben. You would be absolutely shocked at the amount of comments that got so upset with me for saying his name wrong. I'm sorry. Tyler Nuben is his actual pronounced name. And look, he's got some of the best size in this class. He's 6'2", 209, really hard hitter. Elite in zone coverage, though. Similarly to Beau Brade, he's just a very, very smart football player. seems to have some of the best ball skills in this class, and he's a strong tackler. There's really not much to dislike about Nuben, but it is his speed. His speed is, well, not ideal. He does get beat over the top from time to time. This guy is physical. He's got good size. I would like to see him improve as a run defender, but he reminds me a lot of Rashad Jones, former Miami Dolphins player. Very similar size. Maybe weren't the fastest, but they won with physicality. I think Nuben is going to be an excellent player at the next level and will probably be a second-round pick. He will probably be the first true safety taken because I've got Cooper DeJean listed as a safety. I know people are going to have him as a corner. He's not a great press man guy. I also don't think he's super fast. He doesn't have very fluid hips, and his footwork can be iffy. But as a safety, you absolutely love that. He's got incredible instincts. He's a very strong tackler. You could line him up in the slot. You could line him up top. You could line him up in the box. Cooper DeJean can play everywhere. I called him a joker. It's like Cordero Patterson, a guy who you can line up everywhere, and he is going to make an impact on the defensive side of the football. I am a massive fan of Cooper DeJean, and he is my number 1 safety in the 2024 draft. But that's going to do it for me. Leave a like, subscribe if you are new. Let me know which position group you guys want to see me do next. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.